Hello, and thank you for taking the time in your very busy schedules to join me today. I hope that there is something within this video that's a benefit to you or to somebody that you know. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. I want to take the time first, thank Rumble for being the free speech platform that it is, because I know on YouTube when I tend to cover politics, I do watch it, seem the algorithm doesn't like me so much. Whereas on Rumble, well, we'll see what happens. So, I have seen a lot of people talking about what has been going on with Governor Grisham in New Mexico and her most recent order of banning guns and the controversy it's caused. So I wanted to look at real quickly a couple of her executive orders she put out regarding the subject and some comments that she made that some people might have missed as far as this particular woman is concerned. One of the executive orders that she's filing is an executive order 23-130, declaring a state of public health emergency due to gun violence. You can look up the executive order online under governor.state.newmexico.us. I'll see if I can include a link in the description to this so you can take a look at it, where it talks, things like, whereas the rate of gun deaths in New Mexico has increased 43% from 2009 to 2018, compared to an 18% increase over the same period nationwide. Well, that's great up to 2018. But what about from 2018 to 2023? I'm an accountant. Let me go ahead and say any financial advice I give any financial commentary I give is strictly opinion and is in no way meant to be taken as financial advice or consent, unless, of course, you have a contract signed with me. So we're missing a chunk of it. Now, let's also not forget this particular governor is a Democrat, is really big on supporting defunding the police. As a matter of fact, New Mexico, Albuquerque, Bernalillo County has defunded the police. I believe it was $1.25 million just in the last 2 years. The DA has gone soft on crime. That's a problem here in New Mexico with the prosecutors going soft on crime. So here's another problem that we'll see with this order as we look a little bit further, that it seems to be an order stopping us from using guns while they continue to be soft on crime. This is an overstep of authority to the most extreme of being tyrannical. You can also, I know you can manipulate statistics. As I said, notice how they're missing from 2018 to 2023. They're missing a couple of years there, like the most current years regarding gun violence, which I believe actually hasn't been as bad as it could be, or it has been in the past. Whereas gun violence has led to the death caused among children of New Mexico, the 11-year-old boy on September 6th is supposedly what sparked all of this. Whereas the impact of gun violence extends beyond physical injuries and fatalities, causing emotional trauma, economic burdens, long-lasting consequences for those affected, individuals and their families. Whereas increasing number of gunshot victims strain our already overburdened healthcare system. This is a healthcare burden system where in New Mexico, they still practice the fact that if you're not vaccinated, you cannot work at a hospital. Here's 3 different instances I've already pointed out where the problems in which, quote unquote, the emergency exists were created by the governor herself to pass this act of enforcement. And I'm sure somewhere she's promised she'd do this in the past. I just don't have the referenced material. Healthcare system and places undue pressure on medical professionals and resources. So again, we're establishing whereas, and the foregone situation also constitutes a man-made disaster causing or threatening widespread physical or economic harm that is beyond local control. That's important as well, meaning that the cops cannot handle the current gun violence. The state of the police force in Albuquerque is so deteriorated, so hamstrung, and so demoralized that they cannot handle the problem of gun violence on a local level. And therefore, it requires the resources of the state pursuant to All Hazard Emergency Management Act. That's not good. Again, overproving again, also, she's overstepping her bounds, saying, well, I mean, next she'll be declaring COVID a health emergency. Oh, wait, she did that. This is the governor that not only locked us down, but kept us locked down for an extended amount of time, far beyond than what was necessary. This is a governor that during lockdowns also had to take a trip over Thanksgiving out of town, which, although the state itself, all travel was supposed to be locked down. This is for some reason, a woman who's always worked as a state government official owns a $9 million private jet. So far up Biden's backside that she's picked up a lot of his criminal corruption. This is also why I'm expecting a knock at the door. Going back to, as well as you look at Enrique Tarrio, wasn't even in the state, sentenced to 22 years in prison. Or we can look at the current thing, what's going on with Trump and his indictments, in which they also, the grand jury, indicted 3 GOP senators. But for some reason, the DA decided not to include them as well, because, then it would really look too political, and that a grand jury would do everything, including indict a ham sandwich. This here, what we have is the declaration of health emergency due to gun violence. This is the drug abuse one. This one I thought was really funny because she's tying the two, both known criminal activities, into one thing. And as far as this criminal activity go, I have a few points I want to point out here that, again, make this a man-made, by the governor herself, a man-made problem. Let us begin. Whereas devastating consequences of drug abuse have resulted in a significant increase in drug-related deaths, with 1,501 fatal overdoses reported in the state in 2021, the fifth highest overdose rate in the nation, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. That was 2 years ago. What's gone on since then? This is a state where we have a known porous border with Mexico. In the news, you hear about Texas and Arizona. Do you ever hear about New Mexico? Because New Mexico welcomes the flood of immigrants. I've done some talk about that in the past. Our governor, the governor of New Mexico is no angel. She is a Democrat, and a corrupt Democrat at that. So we'll go in with the fifth highest due to drug overdoses. But this is also the first thing she did when she came into office. The first thing she did was make abortion legal up until birth in the state, because it's a woman's right to be able to murder a child. Wait a second, the gun violence thing. I'm missing something here, but okay, whatever. Abortion till birth is great. And whereas communities of New Mexico are grappling with social and economic burdens of drug addiction, including the strain on healthcare resources, increased crime rates, homelessness, and disruptive family structures. That's going to be interesting here in a second. For a couple of reasons, too. Now, where you hear people complaining about the First Amendment, I believe is healthcare system overburdened. Again, New Mexico must be vaxxed to work in the healthcare industry. Man-made problem. Whereas children and youth of New Mexico are particularly vulnerable to the negative impact of drug abuse, as evidenced by the rising number of cases involving parental substance abuse and its subsequent effects on child welfare. That one's an interesting statement. The reason I say that is whereas the state's existing efforts to combat drug abuse, including prevention, treatment, law enforcement initiatives requiring immediate reinforcement and conditioning to effectively address this public health crisis. Where do you see prosecution? No prosecution for drug abuse problems? So again, we're continuing part of the problem. And I'll show why there's also no prosecution for these new laws, but they're to be enforced as we go along. 22 years for Enrique Tarrio. For what? Burning a BLM flag. The state of New Mexico has recently made cannabis legal for recreation use, whereas the federal government still classifies it as a Class 1 drug, just with fentanyl. The accessibility and prevalence of potential synthetic opioids such as fentanyl have escalated the risk associated with drug abuse, contributing to a surge in overdose incidences. Going back to where she's talking about the children being hurt through parents being involved in substance abuse cases. Well, if it's a recreational drug, it's still under substance abuse. Interesting how she has this starting to set up. Do we see something weird going on here? Whereas the foregoing situation also constitutes a man-made disaster causing or threatening widespread physical or economic harm that is beyond the control and requires the resources of the state to pursue. Now, these two orders are in effect for 30 days, December 6th, as needed to go further. Now, the one that binds them both together, like the one true ring, is the public health order of New Mexico Department of Health Secretary Patrick M. Allen put forth September 8th, 2023, the public health emergency order imposing temporary firearms restriction and drug monitoring and public safety measures. The Department of Health shall, within 20 days, compile and issue a comprehensive report on gunshot victims presented at hospitals in New Mexico, which shall include, if available, demographic data on gunshot victims, including age, gender, race, and ethnicity. I wonder if they're how much of the Native American population they will include. Data on gunshot victims' healthcare outcomes. So if there's any disparagements, of course, because New Mexico, we're like that here. Brand, caliber of firearms used, the general circumstances leading to the injury. So generally what happened that caused one person to shoot another person, the impact of gunshot victims on New Mexico healthcare system, and any other pertinent information. The part where people are going under the First Amendment as well is when you see Part 5, New Mexico Department of Health, and the New Mexico Environmental Department shall develop a program to conduct wastewater testing for illicit substances such as fentanyl at all public schools. It's one of those things that if it was cost effective, you think they would have done it a long time ago during the Nixon years war on drugs, or with Reagan or Carter or Clinton or Bush or hold on. It's not cost effective, but hey, we're going to go ahead and monitor your pee anyways. This includes the teachers, and I'm curious, how are you going to separate the difference between the students, the teachers, and visitors? It's going to get somewhere on somebody's First Amendment toes. The Children and Youth Families Development, CYFD, shall immediately suspend the juvenile detention alternative initiatives and evaluate juvenile probation protocols. So already we're looking at, the problem is the recent shooting it was a 15-year-old kid who shot an 11-year-old kid with a stolen gun. And apparently the 15-year-old should have been in juvenile hall, but because of the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative signed by the governor, because of the enforcement of strict and biased laws on juveniles in New Mexico, do we see the man-made problem here? Ban on being able to carry or conceal firearms. Now, their solution to say, well, it's not really a ban on firearms, is we're going to give everybody one free trigger lock that you can use while you're within city limits. So what if you have more than one gun? You have to pay for the trigger locks. So what happens if I don't? Well, then civil restrictions will be imposed upon you. Civil as in like sanctions, like what the federal government does to our enemies. Sanctions, fines, and more fines. So you're going to go after a person's financial wallet, basically after their finances, for being what? A law-abiding citizen who believes they have a Second Amendment God-given right to bear arms? Yeah, we have a problem here, it seems. Any person or entity who willfully violates this order may be subject to civil administrative penalties available at law. Which means what? It means they also don't know how they're going to punish you. 22 years in prison. So what are we talking about here as far as the extent of civil punishment? Well, we'll figure that out later. So it depends on who you are. That doesn't seem entirely fair in a demonstrable two-tier justice system. It seems a little off to me, just a little. This was the Gateway Pundit where I first saw it, and where she's like, "Yeah, we're going to put a 30-day ban, but if we go back to this executive order, should any provision of this order or its application to any person or circumstances be held invalid by a court of law, the remainder of the order shall, or the remainder of this order or the application of its provisions to other persons or circumstances shall remain in full force and effect." Well, if we look at 5, it tells us exactly till when. This order shall remain in effect on September 8th, 2023, and remain in effect for the duration of the public health emergency declared in Executive Order 2023-130 and 2023-132, and any subsequent renewals of this public health emergency declaration, unless otherwise rescinded. So unless she specifically says that she's rescinding it, she can also quietly pass a subsequent renewal to the public health emergency. Her or any of state secretary or public health secretary can do this. And it's worse because it's technically the public health secretary that can renew this. So it's not even the governor? Is this her way of passing the buck?
From the Albuquerque Police Department, Chief, thank you. We have the Bernalillo County Sheriff, John Allen. We also have Commander Hernandez to the effort.
Skip ahead. This is the guy who swore he'd never be a police officer again after he retired, who is now the dude in charge of coming up with this civil gun ban.
Former State Police Chief Pete Cassettis, who joins us today in a new official capacity, and he is our newly announced Crime Reduction Director, helping us keep the
Crime Reduction Director. That's as good as a drug war czar. Gotta love these titles. So now the science is behind him as well. Whatever.
Navigation and the coordination of all the different levers, resources, and opportunities to make New Mexicans safer as possible.
In other words, the $750,000 that have already been cut off, peeled off, because that's the most I believe our governor can actually order in a decree of any kind, is $750,000 at a time to be distributed as needed. Money laundering. Moving on.
What I have in the public health order is not agreed to by every member sitting at this table, nor was it developed with all of their expertise at the front end.
In other words, I didn't consult them. I'm doing it anyways, and they're all here to support me.
What you'll see is I'm taking on all the major issues, and as I give you the details of the public health order, which I'm going to do in a minute, you'll see that some of them are going to pose incredible challenges for me as a governor and as a state, and I welcome the debate and the fight about making the Mexicans safer. Before I give you the details,
That would be taking her out of office, because the state cannot enforce morals without it being legal plunder, without it taking away from some other portion of the population, in other words, to enforce those morals.
Details of the public health order, I am going to ask the deputy secretary just to put into context, not that you need it, about just how dire you think the situations are around the state, and in particular, the largest city, the nexus of I-25 and I-40, presents very particular challenges for all of us in keeping your Mexicans safe.
So again, we've had issues on the road here, and the way they built I-25, I-40, the big I, they really didn't do it in the best of ways or the most safest of ways. It's a little hectic to change from I-40 to I-25 and vice versa. And yeah, I've watched some pretty interesting accidents happen there, but it has nothing to do with gun violence or drug problems. It just adds to the problem.
Time, I do want to tell the parents and family members of the children who we've lost.
Wait. I have a real big question. This woman's talking about gun violence and the trauma it causes and etc. But she's okay with abortion. So murder's okay if you give consent. But the 15-year-old who pulled the trigger that killed the 11-year-old, that the 15-year-old gave his consent to shoot him. Where's the problem? There's, what is it me that's having a problem going, okay, so murder with consent is okay as long as the person that's being murdered is not the one giving consent. Again, this woman authorized abortions till birth. Oh, there's no state in the union that does that. New Mexico allows abortions till birth. Oh, but they want New Mexicans to come up with a solution to the problem. How about we make abortion illegal? That'd be a good start. No? Then shut the fuck up.
Lost to gun violence, and just incredibly recently and in recent months. I want them to have our shared condolences.
Exactly. How many abortions have happened in just the past few recent months? How many abortions? How many times? Oh, it's only because it's gun violence.
And we want them to know that we are horrified by what is occurring around the state and the country. And
I'm horrified with what's occurring in the violence of consensual murder. I'm horrified by it. Why am I the only one, by the way, that seems horrified by consensual murder in the state of New Mexico? I know a lot of people are upset that her doing this is a violation of the Second Amendment and the violation of the First Amendment with, the whole bathroom and wastewater and testing for illegal substances. Are you really going to have each kid go in and take a piss test when they go to the bathroom at a school? Really? Oh, then you still ain't seen nothing yet. In New Mexico, I was in my house, guy drove down the street shooting his gun. The bullets were in my wall, in my window. What'd the cops do? Give us a call if he comes back around. That's gun violence, but in the hands of who? Some guy driving down the street shooting at houses in the middle of the night. Because it's funny. Oh, but I'm sure that was a law-abiding citizen that did that, right? Because it's only law-abiding citizens.
9% of those were homicides, 53% were suicides. That's
There we go. Out of the 481 deaths, 53% of those were suicide.
and that frankly is escalating around the state, including right here in Santa Fe. So in this public health order, which is effective today, September 8th, which lasts 30 days, and then we'll, like all the other public health orders, we will either amend or renew or adjust.
Amend, renew, or adjust. Not end, amend, renew, or adjust at the end of 30 days. This is not just a temporary situation. And you have all of the police, sheriffs, state troopers, all law enforcement are sitting at that table with her, backing her again, despite swearing an oath to the Constitution that says, Second Amendment shall not be infringed. This is a tyrannical state, and I've said it repeatedly, especially during her COVID policies that she set in place and have kept in place still. Again, you can't get a job in a hospital here unless you have had your vaccine and you're current with your vaccine shots.
Depending upon where we are. So effective immediately, no person other than a law enforcement officer or licensed security officer shall possess a firearm, either openly or concealed, within cities or counties, averaging 1,000 or more violent crimes per 100,000.
That's why, in the end, I don't care what anybody tells me, this woman is a dictator and a tyrant. And this is specifically to take your guns away as we continue to have an open southern border. And these cartels, they're not coming in through Texas at all the time, Arizona, or California. They're coming into New Mexico. All this fentanyl is coming into New Mexico. We've had a meth problem in New Mexico for the past 20 years, where people make meth. Breaking Bad wasn't just a show. And here we are now. Oh, well, we got to take away your guns because why? Because, you know, how this woman got into office is a little suspicious. Oh, but there was no cheating. Of course. Never. Because she's a Democrat who won.
And more than 90 firearm-related emergency department visits. So to concealed within cities or counties, averaging 1,000 or more violent crimes per 100,000, and more than 90 firearm-related emergency department visits.
Oh, there's the catch. Okay, so it's violent crime, not just gun crime. That includes rape and knives and crime and anything else. So violent crime, but you only need 90 emergency room visits from gunshots in a period of a year.
So to put that in sort of a layman's terms, for 30 days in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County, it's the only place that meets both those standards. Statewide order, but only one place meets both.
Gee, that's a lot of violent crimes, but we've, again, cut down on the police, defunded the police, defunded the cops, defunded the state, defunded the sheriffs, and we've been weak on prosecuting criminals.
Criteria.
So we have to take away the guns from law-abiding citizens.
We have far too many ER gunshot visits, and we have far too many crimes involving firearms.
So it's arbitrary. We are suspending your Second Amendment constitutional right. We are suspending your God-given right in the name of health and safety. Man, I said this back when COVID came in. This is what they're doing. I hate being right. It's just going to get worse from here.
Concealed carry. The purpose is to try to create.
Now, mind you, she's not giving up her private security, is she? Because again, she makes enough money to cover it. She's not giving up her private security or the police that are surrounding her at the governor's mansion that are assigned there. So she's not giving up her family's not having to give up their private security. So why do I have to give up my gun in a state that allows for open carry by law? Why? And this, I'm supposed to accept this is not tyrannical or a dictatorship, in which, even though she's saying it's only 30 days, she also has said in this, and I've shown you, that it will be amended or changed or added to as she sees fit beyond the 30 days.
Create a cooling off period while we figure out how we can better address public safety and gun violence. Now,
anyways, before this woman makes me too much angrier than I already am, I'm going to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to join me today. I hope that there was something in here that was a benefit to you or somebody that you know. I've already hit an hour. I've gone way over time on this. Please like, subscribe, follow. Recommend this video to somebody that you know. Please stop at DnLMentors.com. Take a look at our accounting firm. We can be found at DnL Mentors on Rumble. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much. God bless you. And God bless America.